our physical and mental well-being aren't different. When my mind's not at ease, I'm probably doing things that aren't so great for my body. And then when my body's not at ease, I'm probably not doing things that are great for my mind. So I realize they play into each other.
Hi guys, Stella Ringer here, your Chief of Aging Fabulous, and welcome to Season 2 of our podcast, where we inspire women 40 plus to age with confidence, boldness, and kick-ass positivity. So today's show is going to be all about our well-being as it relates to our mental health. And we have an industry expert here that is not only beautiful, but smart, intelligent, and knows all about the mental health industry. So welcome to the show, Miss Tasha Temple.
Thank you.
Hi, Tasha.
Hello, Miss Stella.
How are you?
I'm well. I'm well as we talk about well-being.
Thank you, too. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, of
I
course.
appreciate it. Because you're right. It's all about making sure like we're keeping our mental health on point, not only as we age, but in general, but we're going to talk about if there are changes or anything that we can help the listeners and viewers around on mental health as we age.
Yeah.
But the first question I'm going to ask you, I always ask all my guests about aging out loud, because we want women to embrace and celebrate this journey.
Yeah.
Because number one, it's a natural part of life.
Absolutely.
Can't run from it. You shouldn't even run or hide because you can't. But it's all about embracing just this beautiful milestone of aging.
Yeah.
So tell me what aging out loud means to you and how it manifests in your life.
It's interesting. I come from a lineage of aging gracefully. My grandmother lived till 97.
Oh, my, 97?
97. And my mom is currently 73, and one of my older aunts is 86. So for me, aging has been kind of natural and ease for me because I've seen it done beautifully. And so I've kind of always looked forward to getting older. And I think at this space of life I am in now, I enjoy it because I feel like, or I feel better than I've ever felt before. Okay. And then when I look at myself in the mirror, I also feel like I look the best I've ever looked. I'm like, I thought I looked good in my 20s and 30s.
Now I look
and I
real
didn't.
good.
I was like, I'm starting to get a gist of like what's best for me.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of been a real comfortable journey because I've seen it done. And so because I've seen it done, I've kind of had an excitement for it, because my mom and her sisters, who are between 73 and 86, still travel. They still, get around. They're still going to balls and getting dressed up. And so I was like, oh, well, if this is what I have to look forward to, like, I'm kind of excited about it. I mean, it comes with its challenges and struggles, right? Like, things change and shift, and there's, some fears around it. But for the most part, it's been an exciting journey, actually.
Yeah. And that's what we want people to hear, because as it relates to Zeal, also, it's all about leaving a roadmap, right? Like, to your point, you were able to see your aunt and your mother, and again, they're still getting around and enjoying life. So we want to leave that roadmap for those younger women to say, hey, this aging thing is great. Don't listen to society that, as we age, we're devalued almost as women. It's like, this is something you should look forward to.
Yeah, because we're all going there.
Because you have no choice.
Yes. One of my aunts always tells me, she said, she's 70 now. It's my dad's sister. She says, there's two options. You're going to get older or you're not going to be here.
Exactly.
So you pick one.
It beats. Exactly. Which one do you choose? A or B?
Right.
No, I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. So tell me a bit more about your background as well. So
I am originally from Arizona.
Okay.
I moved as a young person to North Carolina with my family, lived there most of my life, and moved to Atlanta as an adult.
Okay.
I'd been in mental wellness A long time. So I started off right out of college. So I've been
Okay.
doing it for 24 years.
Wow.
I know. It seems like, has it been that long? I started off working with women who were suffering from and in situations of domestic violence out of college.
Wow.
Yeah. It was kind of interesting. It was
I
a
bet
tough
you heard
first
a
job.
lot and experienced. I mean, being a young
Yeah.
professional in that industry.
It was kind of surreal because I hadn't ever really kind of like dealt with it, heard about it too much. So it was definitely a very surreal first experience coming out of college. And then I kind of stepped back and took some steps towards doing administrative based stuff.
Okay.
Then I got burned out
Yeah.
early. Like I was late 20s.
Okay.
And ended up completely going back to school and taking a whole different route. And so the reason I decided on the new route is throughout my life, I had a father who died suddenly very early, like 48. It's so interesting that I'm now around that age. It's like, wow, still so young.
Yeah.
And so I went back to school for nutrition because I was very interested in how does food and wellness impact how long we're going to live.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I went back to school for human nutrition and then became a dietitian.
Okay.
That's when like my overall wellness journey kind of started, was really kind of selfishly like, how do I make sure I live past 48?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so like, and I did dietetics work. I specifically got into diabetes. It was something I was really interested in. It plagues our community so much.
Yeah.
And I was like, how do we make these changes and shifts and things like that? And so I then became a dietitian and worked in dietetics for a long time, started to like make changes in my personal life.
Yeah.
And then here I am, you know, back in mental health, but then kind of understanding now that our physical and mental well-being aren't different.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And so like when my mind's not at ease, I'm probably doing things that aren't so great for my body. And then my body's not at ease, and I'm probably not doing things that are great for my mind. So I realize they play into each other. So I've kind of learned how to navigate and migrate them both together.
And I'm glad you said that because I think, and I know I've done it, people tend to separate
the
two, you know? So like you said, one impacts the other.
Yeah.
One impacts the other. And as we think about mental health and mental well-being, is there a difference with between those two definitions, like mental health, mental well-being? Or are they one and the same?
I say they're one and the same, but here's what I think. So you always think about, well, the way I think about it is you also got to understand like who you're talking to.
Okay.
And so if we're talking to, you know, like our Black and brown communities, mental health is something that we don't like to hear, talk about, you know, like it's taboo.
Right.
And so sometimes we got to find words that like support where we are and where we want to go. And that could be a little more receptive.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And so sometimes we'll use like mental well-being because that sounds a little more fluffy than mental health. And I think it's all the same, you know, because if you talk about your body, we don't really say physical well-being, right? Like we say physical health.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, it's all the same. It's just like, how do I feel internally, mentally, physically? Like, how do I feel inside? Yeah. And so, but I do have to consider like, or we have to consider like, who are we talking to and which words are going to resonate more?
Okay.
So like a lot of times if I'm speaking to also like our woke community, then you might want to say well-being because people are in this space where we're talking about meditation and we're talking about self-care and like, you know, that kind of stuff. So well-being sounds a little bit more receptive in those kind of circles. And so like when we say mental health, people are thinking about more like mental disease.
Yeah.
And like the things that we've seen in our community with mental health don't always look very good. Like we might see, you know, someone who has had mental health challenges and then decided to, you know, manage the drugs and alcohol. And then so that hasn't, you know, that's plagued our families. And so we don't kind of like to talk about that stuff.
Right.
So we shift words to make sure we still, you know, talk about it, but in a way that we can receive and have conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what does it actually mean around mental health? Because you're right. You mentioned earlier, sometimes we go directly to, if it isn't something positive, it's depression or it's anxiety so what does really having good mental health look and feel like?
I think I'm going to have an opinion that might not be so accepted.
Okay.
And because I think when you talk about these words, like we talk about depression and anxiety and how you look at like what is a good idea of like mental health. When I think of someone who has really good mental health, I think of someone who can actually identify all of those feelings and emotions. So sometimes we think that, or we label these feelings as positive and negative, good or bad.
Yeah.
And we're all encompassing people, humans, and we have the ability to feel everything. Depression, we're all going to feel a moment of depression or anxiety or frustration or anger or joy or excitement or sadness. Or, we can feel all of those things, but then we label the good ones good, label the bad ones bad. So then a lot of times when we talk about mental health, we throw in words like depression and anxiety, and then people don't want to talk about it because they think that's a negative thing, right?
Right.
And I'm like, when I talk about mental health, I tell people, think about yourself as like the sky.
Okay.
The sky is what color?
Blue.
Yeah. Does it ever change?
No.
What does change is what comes in and out of the sky. Right.
Because it could be cloudy one day and it's more gray of a day or sky.
So the sun could come in and it looks bright and this beautiful blue, or the moon comes in and this midnight color comes out, or the clouds come in and it looks now gray and cloudy, or it's the sun is setting so it looks purple and orange, but the sky technically is always the same color. You're always going to be you.
Yeah.
That stuff that comes in and out are your emotions and your feelings.
Yeah. Okay.
So some come and stay a while. Like if I live in Seattle, it might rain for 2 weeks.
Right.
Right? If I live in Southern California, the clouds may not come for a while.
Right.
And so I tell people your feelings are exactly that. They can come in and out. That sadness can come in and out. The joy can come in and out. The happiness can come in and out. And when I think about what good mental health is being able to acknowledge that those feelings are there.
Right.
And knowing how to navigate through them when they're there, instead of avoiding them and acting like that we don't experience them.
I like that. I like the way you explain that, because sometimes, like you said, people are going to get sad. Yeah. Everybody gets sad. And I always have a question around, like, well, when the sadness, is there a time frame to where then it becomes depression or something else? So how do you navigate that?
So there is. So there are some criteria. So mental health care works just like physical health care. So there are diagnostic criteria. So if you go to the doctor and you have a high blood pressure today, they're not going to say, oh, you now have high blood pressure and you're diagnosed with that. They're going to do some testing. You're going to come back a few times. They're going to see if it's a pattern and a trend. Or if you have diabetes, you're going to take a test and they're going to see your numbers are trending up. And they're going to say, hey, do these things here. Same works with mental health. We have diagnostic criteria. So in the event we get to the point where sadness becomes long-term sadness that turns into depression or debilitating depression, there is diagnostic criteria that gets to the point where it becomes diagnosable, just like physical conditions. So you can't come today and have a little high sugar and you all of a sudden have diabetes.
Right, exactly.
So if you come to a mental health professional and you have sadness today, it doesn't mean you're depressed. Or even if you had a couple of high blood pressures in the past 6 months, it doesn't mean you have high blood pressure.
Right.
And so it's dependent on what's going on in your life, right? Like if someone just had someone pass away, we expect for you to be sad for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if it's gone on a certain amount of time, there is diagnosable criteria that says, hey, if you've had depression for this long and these other things are also coupled with it, then there's a diagnosis of like depression that then now we can treat with medication, just like physical conditions. So they work the same way.
Yeah. And again, that's great nuggets because, and I'll just say myself, I just don't think we've been taught to look at them the same as you think about mental health and then your physical health. Now, in your experience, have you seen anything as it relates to kind of your mental health around women that may be going through menopause or going through this aging journey, and the mental health there has been impacted, I guess? And what tips and tools could we provide for those women?
I think as we get older, what makes it more challenging or where I see challenges in mental health is the impact of what goes on in your life. So if you think about the trajectory of aging, in your 20s, things are fun and you're not thinking about anything. You're just living life out here. You're outside, you know. And so, and in your 30s, things, you know, people start to, you know, get families and, you know, like you start to kind of raise kids and like the trajectory of life starts to build.
Yeah.
And in mental health, the more life starts to build, the more it starts to become challenging just navigating your basic emotions.
Okay.
So like, here's how the brain works. Your brain has two different sides. You have the thoughtful side that thinks and reasons and, you know, does all that kind of stuff. You have the feeling side that's like the playfulness, the fun, and the feelings and emotions. They do not work at the same time.
Okay.
We think they do. We think we do a good job at like masking this stuff. Right. We really just don't. And so when our thinking is up really, really high, we're unable to like kind of navigate through our emotions well.
Okay.
And when our emotions are up really high, we can't really think well.
Okay.
And so as we age, a lot of times those become unbalanced.
Okay.
Because if we are tired.
Yeah.
Or exhausted, or we're having bodily pains that are just not what we've been used to or accustomed to. Or now I'm just frustrated because, you know, my mom is now having aging ailments and then I also have kids here, so I'm in the middle.
Right.
And so all that makes it hard to then navigate through how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Like I'm too tired to even
I'm too tired to think.
I'm too tired to think. And so then I get wired up in my emotions because if I'm in my emotions, my thinking's down here. So I can't think. It's a physiological thing. And when I'm in my emotions, it starts to feel more intense.
Okay.
So if I'm sad, I'm going to feel sadder. So as I get older, so many things are happening that now my sadness feels more intense.
Got it. Because you had the sadness before, but it's the other outlier things that are coming in that may like impact it even more.
My anger feels more intense.
Okay.
Right? And what's interesting is depression, sadness look different in different demographic of people.
Okay.
So like for Black and brown people, our depression doesn't look like sad. It looks like anger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a trifecta in this depression, sadness world.
Okay.
So you have a triangle and up here is what we call hurt or depression. And then these two corners, you have sadness and anger. So hurt is going to express itself as either sadness or anger. And so for a lot of us, it's not normal, I'm using quotes, or common to see Black and brown women sad. It's not really accepted. Like, why are you crying? Like, girl, you're strong. You got this.
Suck it up.
Suck it up.
Just go.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what happens is it looks like anger, agitation, frustration, irritation. So now all of a sudden you're at this space where you have so much going on that you're just about to bust on everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody can get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we don't realize that we're just really sad and hurt.
Yeah.
And so as we get older, it's just the compounding stuff that make everything feel so overwhelming to deal with because there's so much life going on that you're just on overload all day.
Yeah. And it may be, too, as it relates to our community, meaning Black and brown, like you said. I know we're talking about it more now, but it was just taboo to say anything. And you just, even though you may have been sad or depressed or whatever, you weren't saying anything because it's like, hey, I just got to keep going and make it happen.
I remember being in high school. I remember not even hearing the word depression until I was out of college. I didn't even know. I never heard the word.
I would,
Like not from my peers. Like I saw it in a book, you know, like studying. But I never heard anybody say like I was depressed or I was sad. Like it wasn't something we readily talked about.
Yeah. And what should we do? Should we kind of step back and breathe or what should we do?
I think it's important to talk about it.
Yeah.
The catch with talking about it is there's not really safe spaces to talk about it. Because a lot of times where I find myself frustrated is there is this thing I like to say. It's my word. Nobody else's word.
It's her word,
It's my word. That there's this thing called positive bullying that's happening.
Okay.
Where if it's not positive, if it's not good, you're then labeled as negative, the angry person, the hater, the this. And so a lot of times when we're going through things, sometimes we can't even come to our friends because we want to positive them out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're just like, when you positive somebody out of it, you kind of diminish what they're feeling.
Mm.
And then if I feel diminished, I might now feel ashamed that I'm even sad. So then I'm going to be unlikely to even talk about it.
Okay.
Which makes it feel more isolating.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's wrong with me that I'm even sad about this? Or that I can't get through it? Or that, like, I'm having this sadness for so long.
Right.
And so I think for us, we have to get it energetically out.
Mm-hmm.
So having, whether it's a therapist, whether it's your best friend, whether it's your mom, whether if it's a life coach, like, there are these spaces where we have to start energetically moving the energy out and saying it and getting it out of your system. But you got to have the safe space where you're not going to feel like someone's going to say, like, girl, you be fine. Like, girl, that ain't that big of a deal. You know, I went through this. You should be fine. Like, and a lot of times we have to realize, like, we're all equipped with different gifts.
Yeah, that's true.
And I might not have the gift you have to get through it in the way you got through it.
Yeah.
And or I might get my gift by going through it how I'm going through it.
That's key. Okay.
So we have to have those spaces where we're starting to extend a little more compassion and understanding, so that there is a space where someone can show up. And if it's longer than we think it needs to be, just having them to have a space where they feel like they can just be where they are at the moment they're in it.
And then that other person receiving it, sometimes we just have to listen.
Yeah.
We just have to listen.
Yeah. Because you don't want to see your friend going through stuff. You want to do your best to make them feel better. So it's not ill-intended, right? Like when we're trying to move them through it.
Yeah.
But it's just like sometimes it's not very helpful. So I do think we have to start communicating about it to whoever is that safe space. It could be, like I said, a therapist, or it might be a friend. It might be a spouse. It might be a mom. But we have to start talking. We do.
And that's usually any hard discussion topic. It's just get it out, like you said.
Yeah.
And just talk about it. I had another guest on and we talked about ageism. Like it's real, but we just need to have the conversation.
Yeah.
And around aging as well. Sometimes I know some women have told me, you know, hey, having some challenges here with this aging thing. I'm not liking it so much. But let's just talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about it. So help me along here, Tasha, around, like, going back to the emotions, around happiness and joy. Is there a difference? Does happiness bring joy? Or if you're joyful, you're happy?
I think it's all a feeling.
Okay.
And so I think it depends on how you're experiencing it, to be honest.
Okay.
So a lot of times I feel like we have these, identifiers, let's call them.
Okay.
Where, like, I might identify myself as being disciplined and organized, right? And so, like, I call them I am statements.
Okay.
And so a lot of times we identify ourselves by our feelings.
Okay.
Right? When, like, joy and happiness to me are both emotions. They're both feelings. So it depends on how somebody experiences them, which word they want to use.
Okay.
But I don't know if one brings the other or if one creates the other. I think you can experience joy and happiness at the same time, or one or the other. It depends on how you identify it. Okay. But I think it's, again, one of those things that comes and goes. If I start identifying myself and my gifts as my feelings, then I start to get disappointed in myself when they're not there.
Okay. Now that makes sense. It does. It does. Because again, like you said, you kind of identify as like, hey, I always feel like I'm this positive person. And, I want to make sure that anybody around me, if they want to talk or whatever, I want to listen, but I know I tend to probably positive, what you call it?
Positive bully.
Oh, Lord, I don't want to be a positive bully. But, and I think, like you were saying, if there's something where I don't feel like I'm helping or being positive to help a person through something, then something is off, I guess.
And I think it could be a lot of pressure. I think like you can experience positivity and you can experience happiness and you can experience joy. And if we identify them as experiences, that means they're available to everybody. Right?
Okay. I like
so,
that.
Like, here's the thing. I can't give you as a gift my happiness.
Right.
I can allow you to experience me as happy.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't give it to you as a gift. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So it's more of a feeling because you can kind of like see it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't give you my feelings, right?
Right.
Your gift might be like I'm really open and I'm really supportive, but those aren't feelings, right?
Okay.
And so look, but they can't experience you as being positive and happy. And so I tell people like those are feelings that are going to come and go, and you can experience it as happiness or joy or excitement or blissfulness.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on how you experience it, to be honest. But I don't think one happens for the other or one has to happen to create the other.
Mm-hmm.
I think it really depends on the experience you're going through, which word that fits the situation more than the other. But then to say like, of course, so I tell people, I'm like, I'm feeling happy today or I'm experiencing happiness today. Because for me, it's
versus saying like, I'm happy.
I am happy.
Okay.
Because then you're like, that is telling people who you are. Like, I am Tasha, like that's telling people who I am. I could tell you how I'm feeling today and what I'm experiencing. And like that to me feels really yummy. Like, oh, I'm feeling all this happiness and I'm feeling all this, joy instead of feeling like I have to show up as joy and as happy every day.
Okay. I think I'm getting it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm getting it. It's about the experiences and what you're versus kind of showing up as a feeling.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
Because like you can give me your support, you can give me your openness, but you can't give me your happiness though, or your positivity.
Because that's mine.
Yours. That's yours. And I think what's also helpful in that is knowing that I don't have to give it away. I can't.
Right.
So I can keep it for me. If I'm talking about like self-care, I can keep that for me.
Mm-hmm.
I can come and be supportive and offer you support and compassion, and I can offer you understanding and I can offer you care, but I can't give you my happiness. It's for me. My joy is for me.
Got it.
I can show you what it look like. You can experience me as joyful, but you got to get it for yourself.
But you got to get, because what brings me joy may not bring you joy.
That's why I can't.
That's a good one.
Let me tell you. Because that's why I say I can't speak for you about saying what brings what.
Yeah.
Because for you, joy might look different for me, and then happy may look different for you. So how can I say to you, happy brings your joy? Joy brings your happy.
Right.
I don't know.
I'm learning some stuff today.
Yeah, I can show you mine.
I love it because it's always been a question for me around the happiness and joy, because you hear different things like you should really be joyful and not happy. I've heard that before.
Why not? I want to do both.
Joyful is ongoing. Happiness may be moments.
I think they're both moments.
So, yeah. I'm going with what she says, 'cause she's the professional here.
Yeah, I think they can both be moments, right? Like, I don't know if anybody's ever ongoingly joyful. Life is happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I experienced it and I can show you again. You can see mine, but I don't know what it's going to look like for you.
Love it. Love it. Now, give us a few tips before we close it out, especially around us women that, again, are getting ready. Women, I'm already on this journey.
Yeah.
Women that may be kind of coming into this next big milestone, again, of aging. And like you said, bodies change, menopause happens, things happen, and that's just life.
Yeah.
And again, I know it can impact our mental health. So kind of last wisdom nuggets of, as we're moving, or women moving into this next milestone, like what do we do to just keep our minds accepting, but kind of clear as well?
Yeah, like I wonder, because I can look back now that I'm in this space. And the one thing I think we're not doing enough of is having fun.
Yeah.
I think things get so serious because life is super serious. that we're not laughing enough.
Yeah.
We're not doing those things that really make us feel good inside, like those yummy things that make us feel good inside. You know, we get caught up in doing these serious things like, I'm going to go do yoga and meditation and I'm going to do all these things.
Right.
It gets so serious. I got to the point where I was like, I stopped meditating. I'm over it. I'm done. Okay. So like I said, I'm not, for right now, it's not on my list. I figure like I'm tired of being tired. So I get some rest.
Yeah.
Get some rest. Lay down. We don't have to do everything.
Yeah.
Try your best to have some fun, have some moments of laughter, get with your girlfriends, get with your spouse or your, you know, whoever that makes you feel good. Eat something you like to eat and enjoy.
Right.
You know, like I say, we've got to get back to doing those pleasurable things.
Yeah.
Those things that do make us feel like yummy inside and good and wholesome. You know, go stand out in the sun. I tell people, go outside one day and put your feet in the grass without some socks on.
Yeah.
Stand in the rain.
Yeah.
Do the things we've been taught that we should stop doing.
Right. Yeah.
Do those things that would make you happy as a child. Like, that's what I would really recommend, because we get so bogged down with all the things that are way too serious that the one thing, if I could think about that I wish I had done differently up until this point, was I wish I had more fun and I wish I tapped more into those things that made me smile as a child.
I love that. Tap into those things that make you smile.
Yes.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
I mean, I've enjoyed the conversation. Like I said, I've learned so much because, like I said, I always had the question on happiness and joy. You definitely gave me clarity there. And, you know, sometimes I think we think it's like this big, drastic thing around this whole mental health piece and self-care. And sometimes, like you said, it's just do the things that make you smile.
Yeah.
And I know it's not as easy sometimes, and probably easier said than done, maybe for some. But it's simplistic. Like, do the things that make you smile. I love that. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for joining us. Appreciate it. And if there's anything I can do for you, Tasha, just let me know.
Just smile.
Just smile. That's what she said. Just smile. So thank you, Zeal family, for joining us for this episode around mental health and just making sure our mental health is on point as we kind of go through this aging journey. But at the end of the day, like Tasha said, do something that makes you smile. Join us next week for conversations around this aging journey and how we embrace it and celebrate it. Zeal, Aging Redefined, the podcast, your go-to for aging fabulous. Bye.